Speaking with Confidence with Ale.
Hello, and welcome back to Speaking with Confidence here on Vaughan Radio. I'm Ale, and this is our hour to practice English with confidence step by step. And how do we do that? Well, we build the language little by little. We start with real situations, a little bit about life. We learn the words we need. We look at the grammar that helps us speak more clearly, and then we practice until it feels natural. And today, our focus is the messages we send. That's what we're going to talk about today. Why? Well, because every day we communicate with people in many different ways, right? We send quick messages. We write emails. We reply to questions. We explain problems. We also apologize when something goes wrong. We ask for information, confirm plans, share news, so many things. And one small message can make a very big difference. A message can solve a problem or can also create confusion, right? And it can also show respect, or it can open a door to a new possibility. And a message can say what we find difficult to face or to say face to face, right? So if you think about it, maybe you need to write to a loved one. You need to reply to a client, or maybe you need to explain something to a colleague or apologize to a friend even. So English becomes useful here because many communication verbs that we use work really well with to. So we say write to someone, reply to someone, speak to someone, listen to someone, and so on and so on. So today we are going to use that idea to learn a formal and elegant structure. And this is to whom. And yesterday we were working on relative clauses, right? Where, whose, and whom. But today we are going to add one more element to whom, and that is to whom. So that's all we're going to do today. All right. Remember that we're not here to memorize the grammar. We're here to understand how English works little by little so we can use it with more confidence. So let's begin with some useful words for today's conversation. Useful words. So in that sense, before we move into the grammar, let's build the language around today's context. That is emails, replies, and so on. These words will help us talk about what we send, what we explain, what we attach, and how people respond. So our first word today is reply. Reply. And this is a noun, but it can also be a verb. And when it's a noun, it's a countable noun. And what does it mean? It's an answer to an email, text, or question. It's an answer to an email, text, or question. So in Spanish, this would be respuesta or responder. How can we use it? Her reply, as a noun, her reply was short but very clear. Her reply was short but very clear. This is used as a noun. And if we wanted to use it as a verb, we can say, she replied quickly. She replied quickly to my email. All right, next word today is attachment. Sorry, let me say that again. Attachment. There you go. Attachment. And this is also a noun and also countable. And attachment is a file sent with an email or an online message. That's an attachment. The file sent with an email or an online message. So in Spanish, this would be archivo adjunto. How can we use it? We can say the attachment includes the updated document. The attachment includes the updated document attachment. All right. Very good. Next word is update. Update. And this is a noun, but it can also be a verb. And if it's a noun, it's a countable noun. And what does it mean? It's new information about a situation. New information about a situation. And in Spanish, this would be actualización if it's a noun, or actualizar if it's a verb. How can we use it? The manager gave us an update before lunch. The manager gave us an update before lunch. All right, very good. And as a verb, we can say the manager updated the company policy. The manager updated the company policy. And this is as a verb. Let's move on to our next word, and this is receipt. No, let me say that again. Recipient. Because receipt is a word that we worked on yesterday, and today is a different word, a new word, recipient. And what is this? This is a noun, and it is a countable noun, recipient. And what is it? That's the person who receives something. The person who receives something. In Spanish, this would be destinatario. So the recipient is destinatario. How do we use it? The recipient opened the email immediately. The recipient opened the email immediately. Oh, very good. Next word, you are familiar with this one, response. Response. But in today's context, we'll see what it means. It's a noun and it's countable, and it is an answer to something. An answer to something. And or reaction as well. So in Spanish, this would be respuesta or reacción. And we can say his response helped clarify the situation. His response helped clarify the situation. All right. Our next word is tone. And this is also a noun, and it is countable. However, it can also be uncountable. So, how do we define this word? The meaning of this word? Well, the feeling or the attitude in a message. The feeling or the attitude in a message. So that would be when it's uncountable. The feeling or attitude in a message. And in Spanish, this would be tono. How can we use it? The tone of the email sounded polite and professional. The tone of the email sounded polite and professional. All right. The next word is attach. Attach. And this is a verb. To attach means to add a file or an email. Well, to add a file to an email or to a message. What we do is we are attaching a file. And this in Spanish is adjuntar. Adjuntar. Please attach the form before you send the email. Please attach the form before you send the email. Very good. And our final word today is forward. Forward. And this is also a verb. And to forward is to send an email or information to another person. It doesn't necessarily have to be an email, but it is to send either an email or information in general to another person. And this in Spanish is reenviar. I will forward the details to the team this afternoon. I'll forward the details to the team this afternoon. All right, very good. There you have your 8 words, 8 useful words. And I'm going to go ahead and go over the list one more time, and then you can do the translation with me. So listen carefully. Reply, attachment, update, recipient, response, tone, attach, and forward. So attachment is the actual file that you add, and to attach is the action of adding the file. Okay, so attachment and attach, to attach. All right, so let's see if you can remember the words. What is actualizar as a verb or actualización as a noun? And update. If you said update, you are correct. What is destinatario o destinataria? Recipient, recipient. Respuesta o reacción? Response. How about tono? Tone. Let's see, let's look for another one. Reenviar. Forward. Adjuntar. Attach. There it is. So, words are reply, attachment, update, recipient, response, tone, attach, and forward. Did I miss a word? I think I missed respuesta o reacción. I'm not sure. Response. If you said response, you are correct. All right, so now let's practice today's useful words in different situations. Okay, so remember the words we're working with: reply, attachment, update, recipient, response, tone, attach, and forward. Let's begin with definition check. Listen to this. What word am I referring to? A file that travels with an email. A file that travels with an email. What is this? Is it tone? Is it attachment? Or is it attach? A file that travels with an email. Tone, attachment, or attach. And if you said attachment, you are correct. Very good. Let's go on to the second one. The person an email is sent to. The person an email is sent to. Would this be recipient, update, or response? Recipient, update, or response. The person an email is sent to. And the right answer is recipient. Recipient is the person who will receive that message or that information. All right, next. The attitude or feeling that a written text communicates. The attitude or feeling that a written text communicates. And you have reply, tone, or attachment. If we're talking about the attitude or the feeling that a written text communicates? Would it be reply? Would it be tone or attachment? And the right answer is tone, because tone is that feeling or that attitude that you can have a sense of when you read an email or certain information. All right, that was tone. Let's work with another one. To send information you received to another person. To send information that you received to another person. So what are we doing when we're doing that? Excuse me. Is it attach? Is it forward? Or is it reply? To send information that you've received to another person. What are you doing? You are forwarding. So the word is a forward. To forward. All right. Next one. New details about a situation that is changing. New details about a situation that is changing. And this would be, is it update, recipient, or attachment? If it's new details about a situation, is this an attachment? Is this an update? Or is it a tone? And it is update. New details about a situation, right? New details. So that makes it an update. And let's try the last one. To include a file with an email. To include a file with an email. And we have 3 options. Respond, attach, and mention. What is it? What am I doing? What word am I looking for? To include a file with an email. So there's an action there, and because of that, the right answer is attach, right? To include a file with an email. What are you doing there? You are attaching more information. All right. And finally, the answer or reaction after someone contacts you. What is that? An answer or reaction after someone contacts you. Is that response? Is that attachment or recipient? And if you said response, you are correct. Response is an answer or reaction after someone contacts you. All right, so now what are we going to do? We are going to rephrase. Well, we're going to replace the simple phrase with one of today's useful words. For example, my sentence is, I sent the booking details on to my sister. I sent the booking details on to my sister. So if I send the booking details to my sister, I received this information and now I'm sending it to her. So what word should we use? We need a verb. How about forwarded? I forwarded the booking details to my sister. Well, let me say that again. I forward the booking details to my sister. Yes, that's the correct pronunciation. Forgive me for saying it like that. I forward the booking details to my sister. There you go. All right. So that's what we got to do. Listen to this next sentence. The person receiving the document signed it online. The person receiving the document signed it online. So what do I need here? Who signed the document? What is another word that we can use instead of person receiving? That would be the recipient. The recipient signed the document online. Okay, let's try with another sentence. Listen to this. Please include the receipt with the email. Please include the receipt with the email. So if we want to include the receipt with the email, what should we do? We want to add this receipt in the email that we're going to send. So we can probably use, please attach the receipt to the email. Please attach the receipt to the email, right? That is the correct answer. All right, now let's see if I give you a sentence. You complete it with one of the options that I'll give you. We're still working with our useful words, all right? So listen to this one. The airline sent an after the gate changed. The airline sent an after the gate changed. So what do you think the airline sent? An update, an opinion, or an umbrella? Well, the most logical answer is update. And let's put it together. The airline sent an update after the gate changed. Right? They sent new information once the gate changed. Very good. How about this one? The wouldn't open on my phone, so I checked it on my laptop. What didn't open on my phone? The attachment, the corridor, or the accent? Let's see. The attachment wouldn't open on my phone, so I checked it on my laptop. That's the correct answer, the attachment. All right. Okay. So, before we go on a break, let's try another sentence that you can say it in a different way using one of our words. Listen to this. His answer arrived just before the office closed. His answer arrived just before the office closed. So what is another word that we can use instead of answer, his answer? We can use his reply arrived just before the office closed. His reply, or we can also use response. His response arrived just before the office closed. Either one is correct. All right? And let's try with another sentence. The style of the text sounded too direct. So what am I talking about? The style of the text sounded too direct. What would you use instead of style of the text? I would say the tone sounded too direct. The tone sounded too direct. All right. And let's do another one. Listen to this. They sent new details about the delivery time. They sent new details about the delivery time. So this is the same idea as one of our sentences from before. If they're sending new details, well, if they sent new details about the delivery, what did they do to that information? They updated it, right? So they sent an update about the delivery time. They sent an update about the delivery time. All right. And let's see what else. One more sentence before we go. Listen to this. The words were correct, but the made the message sound impatient. The words were correct, but the made the message sound impatient. So, is it tone? Is it label? Or is it ticket? Which word are we looking for? Tone, label, or ticket? The words were correct, right? But the tone made the message sound impatient. the tone made the message sound impatient? And our answer is tone. All right, let's keep on working. Listen to this one. Could you the restaurant details to everyone in the group chat? Could you the restaurant details to everyone in the group chat? And what would this be? Could you forward? Could you borrow? Could you repair the restaurant details? The right answer is forward. Could you forward the restaurant details to everyone in the group chat? All right. So we're going to go on a break. And before we move into today's grammar, we're going to work on a fun fact. I'll share that with you right after the break. So when we come back, we're going to work on the grammar that we are going to be using for today's topic, and that is to whom. Remember that we've added one element to that relative clause, which is whom, to whom. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Esto lo que oyes.
You're listening to the right radio. You're listening to Vaughan Radio. You're listening to Vaughan Radio.
Este verano, ¿quieres que tus hijos se diviertan, vivan 1000 aventuras y además ganen fluidez en inglés, rodeados de naturaleza y con los mejores monitores angloparlantes Vaughan? Tráelos a nuestro Vaughan Summer Camps, con cabañas, actividades acuáticas, multiaventura, nuevos amigos y entornos increíbles donde aprenderán a resolver situaciones cotidianas en inglés sin darse cuenta. Más de 3.000 niños viven nuestras inmersiones cada año. Encuentra tu mejor Summer Camp sin salir de España. Contrata tu mejor camp.
Come to learn with us at Vaughan.
¿Te apuntas?
Mommy, Daddy, these summer English books are so much fun.
¿Quieres que este verano tus hijos repasen inglés de forma divertida? Tenemos justo lo que necesitas. Llega Summer English. Listen, practice, learn. La nueva colección de cuadernos de Vaughan para niños de primero a sexto de primaria. Con juegos, gramática, vocabulario, audios y actividades online. Todo al más puro estilo Vaughan. Ya disponibles en vaughantienda.com y librerías seleccionadas. Este verano, aprender inglés será su plan favorito.
¿Quieres mejorar tu inglés sin complicaciones? Vaughan Inglés 4.0 es el curso de inglés más completo en formato audio, con casi 600 clases desde cero hasta nivel avanzado. Paso a paso, donde y cuando quieras. Claro, práctico y eficaz. Gramática, vocabulario, pronunciación y sobre todo, resultados. Busca nuestro podcast Vaughan Inglés 4.0 en iVoox.
Estas vacaciones, haz un viaje para tu inglés. Con los cursos intensivos semanales de Vaughan, mejora tu inglés durante cualquier periodo vacacional. Navidad, Semana Santa, verano, tú decides cuándo. Una semana para mejorar tu fluidez. Gana confianza al hablar. Aprovecha tu tiempo libre al máximo. Y lo mejor es que puedes reservar tu curso desde ya para asegurarte tu plaza en el momento que prefieras. No dejes pasar la oportunidad de avanzar en tu inglés estas vacaciones. Entra en grupovaughan.com/intensivos y contrata tu semana intensiva hoy mismo, porque tu inglés también merece unas vacaciones.
En Vaughan Town hay un antes y un después. El antes es inseguridad, titubeo, fastidio. El después es confianza, convicción y arrojo. Y esto en solo 6 días.
El mayor ambiente lingüístico jamás creado, con la mayor variedad de acentos nativos nunca antes reunidos. Vaughan Town, el pueblo anglo de Vaughan. Vaughan Town. Rechaza imitaciones. Infórmate en el 911335833.
Vaughan Town. Cambia tu inglés ya.
En
Encuentra todos los libros de nuestros presentadores de radio en las tiendas Vaughan. Nosotros te ayudamos a encontrar el libro perfecto para ti, para todos los niveles y edades. También encontrarás libros de alemán, francés y mucho más. Estamos en calle Orense 75, en Madrid, o en nuestras 6 delegaciones por España. Ven a vernos o visita vaughantienda.com. Vaughan, Learn English.
Escúchanos en cualquier momento y en cualquier lugar. Descarga la app de Vaughan Radio.
You are listening to Everyday. Listen to Vaughan Radio. You're listening to Vaughan Radio.
Tune in every day.
Vaughan Radio.
Speaking with confidence with Ale.
Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence here on Vaughan Radio. I'm Ale, and today we're talking about the messages we send. And before the break, we practiced some useful words for written communication. Reply, attachment, update, recipient, response, tone, attach, and forward. And before we move into today's grammar, let's start for a small fact. And here it is. I'm sure you know that written communication is very powerful, but it's also easy to misunderstand, right? Why? Why does that happen? Well, when we speak face to face, we have many extra clues, right? We hear the person's voice, we see their face, we notice their gestures, and we can ask immediately, wait, what do you mean if we don't understand something? But when we read an email or a text message or a quick reply like that, we only have the words on the screen. And this is why a short message can sometimes feel colder than the person intended. And therefore, in written communication, clarity matters. Anything could be misunderstood, right? Even emojis that are so used nowadays. But the best thing, in written communication, clarity matters. And you would say that your grammar has to be perfect. Well, yes, it does. It has to be correct. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to use complicated words, and you don't need to give long explanations. Just clarity. Who needs the information? What do you want to say? What do they need to know? And that, I think that's the heart of a good message. So when we speak or when we write in English, we sometimes worry about also sounding perfect, and that is correct. I mean, not perfect, but you should sound correct, right? Not perfect. But the most important thing is to be clear, and I also feel like it is also important to be polite and, most importantly, easy to understand. And with that idea in mind, we are ready for today's grammar, and we're going to continue with yesterday's relative clauses. But as I said before, we're going to add an element to one of those, and that is to whom. To whom. All right, so let's begin with our grammar that works. So, to whom, let me spell that for you. T-O-W-H-O-M, 2 words. And it sounds very elegant, right? I think it sounds very formal, very elegant, but it's very useful to understand. It's very easy to understand, and it's very useful, especially when you're reading a professional English letter or an email, or when you want to write an email like this, right, with a more careful writing. So, for example, in English we often say, I sent the update to Anna, right? Here, Anna is the person who receives the update. Now, imagine we want to describe Ana. Ana is the person, and I send the update to her. So how do we connect these two ideas in a more natural sentence? Ana is a person, and I send the update to her. Well, we can send Ana is the person I sent the update to, right? That's one way to do it. That's the normal spoken version. And if we want it to be a little bit formal, we can move to before whom. Ana is the person to whom I sent the update. And it has the same meaning, but the style is a little bit more formal. So we're going to be looking into those two today. Let's break the structure down a little bit more. So, if I say to you, again, Ana is the person whom I sent the update. En español es, Ana es la persona a quien le envié la actualización. So, to whom means something like a quien, a la persona a quien, o en otros contextos, a las personas a quienes. Okay? So the structure is very easy. It goes like this. You can use it this way. Pattern. This is the first pattern. The person to whom, the subject, and the verb. So let's listen to another example. The colleague to whom I replied was very understanding. And I'll say that again. The colleague to whom I replied was very understanding. So the colleague is a person, la persona. To whom, a quien, I replied, respondí. So the full idea is this one. El compañero a quien respondí fue muy comprensivo. The colleague to whom I replied was very understanding. So we can also say, which is very common, mostly used in English, is this. The colleague I replied to was very understanding. And that's perfectly correct. The colleague I replied to was very understanding. Right? But it's the same meaning. The colleague to whom I replied was very understanding. So that's one way to use this one, this first structure. And we also have a different pattern. Listen to this. It's the person to whom, then the subject, then a verb, and then an object. So when do we use this? Well, we can use it with verbs like send, forward, explain, or attach, because we often send or explain something to someone. See, we're using our useful words here. Listen to this. The recipient to whom I'd forward the email answered immediately. And I'll say that again. The email whom I forwarded the email answered immediately. So what happens? The recipient is the person receiving the email, right? La persona quien recibe el correo. To whom, a quien. I forwarded the email, le reenvié el correo. So, in our everyday version of this, we would say the recipient I forwarded the email to answered immediately. But if we want to use this other formal version, we could say the recipient to whom I forwarded the email answered immediately. So again, the same meaning, but the formal version puts to before whom. So to whom. Okay? So let's say that sentence again. The recipient to whom I forwarded the email answered immediately. So why do we use whom and not who? I mean, we could, but what's the difference? Well, we use who when the person does the action, cuando la persona ejecuta la acción. So, for example, the person who replied was polite. So here, the person replied, the person did the action. Fue la persona quien ejecutó esta acción, right? The person who replied was very polite. But when we use whom, when the person receives the action or receives the communication, sounds like this. The person to whom I replied was very polite. So here in this sentence, I replied to the person, right? And the person received my reply. Aquí, la persona más bien es la que recibe mi respuesta. Y la que ha ejecutado la acción soy yo. I replied to the person. Let me say that sentence again. The person to whom I replied was very polite. ¿Quién ejecuta la acción? Yo. Yo respondí. I replied. ¿Y quién recibe esa acción? La persona, the person. So the person to whom I replied was very polite. So one more time. Who, when we use who, then we are saying that the person does the action. When we use whom, the person receives the action, especially after a preposition like to. Okay? So let's compare another pair of sentences. Listen to this. The client who sent the email was nervous. The client who sent the email was nervous, right? So who sent the email? The client. The client sent the email. But what if I say this? The client to whom I sent the email was nervous. The client to whom I sent the email was nervous. So who's sending the email in this sentence? I am. I sent the email to the client, right? So now that this is a different meaning. Let's see another one. The teacher who explained the talk was patient. The teacher who explained the task was patient. So who explained the task? The teacher. The teacher explained the task. Fue la profesora o el profesor quien explicó la tarea, right? And if we wanted to use to whom, it would sound like this. The teacher to whom I explained the problem was patient. The teacher to whom I explained the problem was patient. So in this sentence, who executed the action? ¿Quién ejecuta la acción? I. I explained the problem to the teacher, right? So that's the difference between one or the other. And which verbs can we use with to whom? Well, with verbs that naturally use to, for example, some that we've seen earlier, write to someone, reply to someone. So we could say, the person to whom I wrote, or the person to whom I replied, right? We can also use it with speak to someone, and we would say, the person to whom I speak or I spoke. Listen to someone, the person to whom I listened. What else can we say? Apologize to someone. We can say then, the person to whom I apologize. La persona a quien me disculpé. How about send something to someone? enviar algo a alguien. Send something to someone. So we could say the person to whom I send something, right? The person to whom I send the document. La persona a quien yo envío el correo. So remember, in everyday spoken English, we usually put to at the end. We'd say the person I wrote to, right? Or the person I replied to. And that's, as I said before, this is mostly used. It's normal. It's natural, frequent. And you will hear it all the time. But when we want to be a bit more formal, then we can say, instead of the person I wrote to, which puts the to, the preposition, at the end of the sentence, we would say the person to whom I wrote, la persona a quien escribí. Same meaning, the person I wrote to, the person to whom I wrote. The person I replied to, the person to whom I replied. And one last sentence. The person I spoke to, the person to whom I spoke. See? The important thing here is not to use to twice, not to double the preposition to. No tenemos que duplicar el uso de la preposición de to. So it's very important that you don't say the person to whom I sent the email to. Okay? No, that's the wrong structure. The correct structure would be the person to whom I sent the email. Why? Because to is already before whom. La preposición está antes de whom. Va antes, no al final. Okay, so you can say that the person to whom I sent the email, or the most common thing, the person I sent the email to. Okay, so one of them uses the relative clause, and when you're using this relative clause, you put to before whom, and when you're not using the relative clause, you put to after the verb, the person I sent the email to. Okay, both options are correct. All right, so, well, with friends and like everyday conversation, we won't usually use to whom, at least not very frequently. We would usually use the other structure, the one that puts the preposition after the verb. The person I spoke to, the person I replied to, and so on. But it is also correct to use this other version. As I said, you can use it in when you want to sound more professional or more formal. You're writing an email or a professional letter, etc. No? All right. So the important thing here is that you recognize these two, both structures, and that you understand both of them as well, and use it in the context that you need to use it in, right? So, as I said, an email, or you might also read it somewhere, and you will be able to recognize it. So, the difference. Let's talk about the difference one more time. Listen to the difference. The person I replied to was very kind, right? Very natural, spoken every day. The person I replied to was very kind. El significado es el mismo. La persona a quien respondí fue muy amable. La misma idea, diferente manera de expresarlo. The person to whom I replied was very kind. La misma idea. La persona a quien yo contesté, yo respondí, fue muy amable. Pero utilizamos una estructura en inglés más formal. Okay? The colleague I forwarded the file, I forwarded the file to works in Madrid. Let me say that again. The colleague I forwarded the file to works in Madrid. That's the most common way to say this, right? El colega a quien le reenvié el archivo trabaja en Madrid. Same idea, different way of expressing it. The colleague the colleague to whom I forwarded the file works in Madrid. The colleague to whom I forwarded the file works in Madrid. Bit more professional. All right, so when the verb uses to, remember this, we have two choices. Our everyday English that puts to at the end after the verb, the person I wrote to, or we have a bit more formal English, as I said, that puts to before whom, the person to whom I wrote. Same meaning, just different way of expressing it. Okay? So now that we have that clear, hopefully, let's put all this grammar into action, and let's begin with some translations. So be ready. Listen to the first one. La persona a quien le envié el archivo respondió esta mañana. La persona a quien le envié el archivo respondió esta mañana. Vamos a utilizar solamente the to whom. So how would you say this? The person to whom I sent the file replied this morning. And we're also using our useful words. The person to whom I sent the file replied this morning. Very good. Structure to whom, to and whom, and our useful word is replied in the past tense. Replied. All right, next one. El cliente a quien le explicamos el cambio pidió más detalles. El cliente a quien le explicamos el cambio pidió más detalles. The client to whom we explained the change asked for more details. The client to whom we explained the change asked for more details. Very good. Let's try another one. La profesora a quien escribí me contestó con mucha paciencia. La profesora a quien escribí me contestó con mucha paciencia. So, the teacher to whom I wrote answered me very patiently. The teacher to whom I wrote answered me very patiently. And let's try one more. El destinatario a quien reenvié la información no estaba disponible. El destinatario a quien reenvié la información no estaba disponible. So remember, useful words. The recipient to whom I forwarded the information was not available. The recipient to whom I forwarded the information was not available. Recipient and forward, useful words from our list today. All right, now we're going to move on to a different type of exercise, and you have to choose the more formal version, okay, with to whom. So you tell me which one is the one we're looking for. I'll give you two options. Option A, the person I replied to was very polite. And the person to whom I replied was very polite. Which one is the formal version? The second one. Very good. The person to whom I replied was very polite. The first option is grammatically correct, but it's not the formal way. It's not the structure we're learning today. The person I replied to was very polite. It's also right. How about these two? Listen to this one. The assistant to whom I sent the form checked it quickly. The assistant to whom I sent the form checked it quickly. Or, the assistant I sent the form to checked it quickly. The assistant I sent the form to checked it quickly. So which is the right, well, both of them are right, but which one is of the formal one? Well, the assistant to whom I sent the form checked it quickly. Remember not to repeat, not to double the preposition to, okay? The assistant to whom I sent the form checked it quickly. So when we use to and whom, we don't need to add an additional preposition. Let's try another one. The office to whom we forwarded the request replied later. Or, the office we forwarded the request to replied later. Which one's more formal? The first option. The office to whom we forwarded the request replied later. Well, that's it for today. I'm Ale, and this was Speaking with Confidence about the messages we send. Up next, the Lunchtime Show with Rob and Andrea, and see you tomorrow.
Estás escuchando Vaughan Radio.
Spanish for real, not just textbooks. Join the free Como Estas Masterclass and get a taste of a practical method designed to help people in the UK. Start speaking with confidence. Know someone who might be interested? Send them to comoestas.co.uk/masterclass.
Este verano, ¿quieres que tus hijos se diviertan, vivan 1000 aventuras y además ganen fluidez en inglés, rodeados de naturaleza y con los mejores monitores angloparlantes Vaughan? Tráelos a nuestro Vaughan Summer Camps. Hay 4 ubicaciones diferentes para que elijas tu mejor opción. Con cabañas, actividades acuáticas, multiaventura, nuevos amigos y entornos increíbles donde aprenderán a resolver situaciones cotidianas en inglés sin darse cuenta. Más de 3000 niños viven nuestras inmersiones cada año. Encuentra tu mejor Summer Camp sin salir de España. Ahora también en la playa. Llámanos al 917001199 y contrata tu mejor camp.
Come to learn with us at Vaughan.
¿Te apuntas?
Si tu hijo tiene entre 6 y 12 años y termina el curso con dudas en matemáticas, Genius Math puede ayudarle a reforzar la base antes de septiembre. Clases online de matemáticas en inglés, método Singapur y 60% de descuento solo hasta el 30 de junio. Más información en grupovaughan.com/matemáticas.
¿Quieres aprender inglés de verdad? Únete a Vaughan Groups. Clases en grupo divertidas y eficaces. Más de 4000 alumnos nos eligen cada año. Entra en grupovaughan.com.
Mommy, Daddy, these summer English books are so much fun.
¿Quieres que este verano tus hijos repasen inglés de forma divertida? Tenemos justo lo que necesitas. Llega Summer English. Listen, practice, learn. La nueva colección de cuadernos de Vaughan para niños de primero a sexto de primaria, con juegos, gramática, vocabulario, audios y actividades online. Todo al más puro estilo Vaughan. Ya disponibles en vaughantienda.com y librerías seleccionadas. Este verano, aprender inglés será su plan favorito.
Mejora tu inglés con los cursos intensivos de Vaughan. Nuestras clases son 100% orales, diseñadas para mejorar tu listening y speaking. Visítanos en grupovaughan.com/intensivo.
¿Quieres aprender inglés a tu propio ritmo y según tu horario? En Vaughan tenemos la solución perfecta para ti. Con las clases particulares online de Vaughan, disfrutarás de la máxima flexibilidad en tu aprendizaje del inglés. Tú eliges.